I'm so glad and excited to take the stage. And fortunately, this is not my first time. Several years ago, when I was taking the stage for the first time, I was very scared. I was nervous. And I thought, let's ask for some advice from the people I know, people from my family, people from my life. So I went to my dad and asked, Dad, I'm scared. I'm talking and I'm scared. What do I do? He said, don't worry, everybody makes mistakes. If you made one, you learn from it. And as and when you do more talks, you'll get more comfortable. I said, yeah, this is solid advice. Then I went to my mom. I told her, Mom, I'm a little bit scared. What do I do? She said, you're the best. I'm so proud of you. There's nobody like you, and I love you so much. I said, yeah. That gave a boost to my self esteem, and I was like, yeah, I can do it. I should have probably stopped there, but then I went to my sister. I asked her, what do I do? She said, you'll do terrible. You'll, you'll, you'll sweat profusely. You'll make so many mistakes. People are going to remember you, people are going to laugh at you, and you are going to get embarrassed. And I'm going to like it. So I said, oh my God, I need to go somewhere else. And then I went to my friends. I asked them the same question, and they said, just make sure your hair looks good and your fly is not open. Yeah, so I took one question, and there were many flavors of the advice, and this brings to our next topic, flavors of Magento. Right? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Harpreet Singh, and just like in life, you don't have black and white binary systems. There are many flavors and variations to the topics. Magento also has that. And beyond the bland and talking about Magento's multiverse of front end, especially we're going to talking about front end ecosystem and what all the front ends that we know. So we know the OG Luma. Everybody loved it. Everybody has used it. We know the sensation Hyvä. We know the hype PWAs and bespoke custom headless. Right? These are some of the variants of the front end, and I'm gonna talk about every one of them a bit, and what are the differences, what makes one a better choice than the other one. So Luma, it's a classic Magento stack based on Knockout.js, Require.js less, very dependable, launching fast with 100% native features. If you are not gonna be going outside of the base stack, base ecosystem, then this is the solid choice. Cost of development is low. By the way, Magento 2 was launched on 17th November 2015. So it completed its 10-year anniversary two days ago. So Luma is 10-year-old. Then we have Hyvä, based on Alpine.js, Tailwind, MageWire, built for speed, built to make monolithic ecosystem fast, and modernizing the stack without keeping it very heavy. And it has moderate cost of development. People would argue with me, but this is what I feel. Then we have PWAs, Progressive Web Application. There was a sensation for PWAs and React.js, Vinia, Scandi PWA, GraphQL API heavy. And this has a use case. The cost of development is high as compared to the other alternatives that we have discussed. And then comes the custom headless, based on Next.js, Vue.js, Gatsby, Svelte, primarily any front-end platform that you can imagine, and keeping Magento as your backend stack. Disconnecting the front-end from the backend, and you have the freedom to choose whatever front-end you want. So custom headless ecosystem. Obviously, the cost of development is going to go through the roof. Now, Magento shipped V2 in 2015, and the default front-end was Luma. It was great at that time. They introduced some of the features which were not there at that time, and one of them was AMD, asynchronous module dependency. So you do not have to load all the dependencies all together, and it was good. Based on module, based on pages, you load dependencies, and the site was, the tech was good at that time. The pros of Luma: the AMD format made scripting non-conflicting. Dependency management between JavaScript modules became simple. Require.js allowed optimizing and bundling of scripts for production. It was a very well-documented system and a stable theme. For any website to utilize all the features of Magento, Luma was a great fit. But it also had some fallbacks, some drawbacks. It was built 10 years ago. Around that time, the technology was evolving. Few other technology stacks came in which were solving the same problem in a better way. So the underlying technology, these are some of the cons of using Luma theme, and underlying technology which was robust at that time, somehow it got frozen in time. There was not further improvement. There was certain other alternatives which were better. So I wouldn't say the technology was bad. I would say others did better. There were other ways to do something what Luma was trying to do. Knockout.js at that time felt great, two-way binding, everything was nice. But 10 years ago, it was great. Now, it wasn't. And hard jQuery dependency, jQuery although loved. We have to agree, everybody who had started development 15 years ago, 10 years ago, loved jQuery. If you talk anything bad about jQuery, you will get the heat. But I feel jQuery needs to retire, and retire for good with dignity. Newer technologies looked more modern, convenient, and most importantly, lightweight. Does the same thing better at almost 1/10 of the payload. This made customizing on top of Luma tedious exercise. We have all been there. We have all tried that as development agencies, development teams, and subsequently rising the cost of development. As and when you add more features on top of baseline Luma, it became difficult. Almost impossible to keep changes rolling without breaking either the website or the development team, or both. If the website isn't breaking, the development team is breaking out, or both. Luma is idle for, is Luma idle? For certain use cases, Luma was idle, but with Hyvä and some other alternatives, we have to start evaluating our options well. Businesses who do not have a heavy customization needs, and Magento, their requirements fall within the scope of what feature list Magento provides, for them, Luma is a great choice. But we also understood there are some challenges, and how do we overcome these challenges? By component-based approach, embedding React.js, Vue.js with Magento. But not every business was ready for a decoupled architecture, so there are two options we had. Not all business requires backend to be disconnected with frontend. Not all websites require microservices. Some people, some businesses do require a monolithic architecture. So we are now standing at a place where there are only two options. Either use Luma, or if you want something better, you disconnect front end from back end, and the heavy cost of development, heavy cost of maintenance will be borne by you. Right? There was nothing in between. And that's where this guy came in. Right? He thought, why not? And that's where the sensation of Hyvä came in 2020. Willem started a change by picking the best of Luma and introducing some of the cutting-edge technologies into Hyvä. By the way, this was his side project back then. What are the advantages of Hyvä? Extremely lightweight, modern stack, Alpine tailwind, utility-based. Alpine gave better flexibility as compared to jQuery. Extending the functionality on the front end was easy. Short learning curve, monolithic approach, avoided unnecessary complications. Better performance, Tailwind has a massive component library. Hyvä component library is expanding with Hyvä UI. MageWire adds some level of reactivity for two-way binding. Hyvä frontend is easy to maintain. This frontend was meant to be what Luma could be. And the list is long. There are many, many other advantages of using Hyvä. What are the cons? Unlike Luma, it's not free. Wait, that changed last week. Hyvä announced the theme to be open source and free, to be accessible by everybody on GitHub. So we can check that off from the list. The module compatibility from the community pool is not there yet. Although I love Hyvä, I see where it is going. I see all the advantages, but the module compatibility is still not there. MageWire's two-way binding via server round trips can sometimes get laggy. MageWire's interactions feel less instantaneous as compared to some of the more reactive frameworks like React or Svelte. If you're migrating a website from Luma to Hyvä, you also have the responsibility to migrating all the modules which are not Hyvä compatible. You'll need to create or update those modules. If the module vendor provides you a Hyvä compatible module, great. If not, then that's a personal responsibility. Bottom line, Hyvä themes today is the fastest way to get a world-class speed score without the architectural complexity and the cost of going fully headless, right? The gap that Hyvä managed to fill has brought a massive shift in Magento ecosystem. Earlier, it was either Luma or Headless. Now there's a massive gap that Hyvä has filled. It reminded everyone that engineering is about uncomplicating. It's not about creating more complications. It is about simplifying it. And then there is another option called PWA, Progressive Web App. The front end is standalone. You can use Magento as a data source, and using the GraphQL API system, you can use it. However, it had some of the advantages. Venias, Candy PWA are two very powerful systems for Magento, extremely fast, near instant transitions, app-like front-end experience, React.js-based component system, and compels you to use API first or API contract approach, right? Very high cost of development is one of the biggest disadvantages of using PWA. Initial development takes time, the setup takes time, creating the API first ecosystem, contract-based ecosystem takes time. And these are all the inconveniences of using PWA. I won't be reading them through. This presentation will be available. I'm running to the next one. The bottom line is PWAs just ended up to be becoming a mule. Although it gave a lot of front-end flexibility, it couldn't provide the app-like native experience or features. Then there is bespoke ecosystem, right? Custom headless. Here you have the absolute freedom to use whatever front end you feel like. You're comfortable with Svelte, you're comfortable with React, Vue.js, you can use it and use Magento backend as an ecosystem. Similar to what PWA does, but you're not talking about making an app like, you're not making promises you cannot keep. So these are pros and cons. Bottom line, bespoke headless frontends are great enablers for composability. This is one of the most powerful approach for enterprise e-commerce. It is not for everybody. Some of the other honorable mentions are Breeze and Expero, some of the great front end. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you for being such a kind and patient audience. I'll be there to taking any questions on the floor. Please find me there. Thank you very much.